Welcome to Flow Master Podcast, Episode 1. And today we have a special guest. He's an artist in many varieties, and we caught him just before he got well known for Matsuu. So, welcome, Tazuo, and tell us about and what is Matsuu?
I'm a poet. I'm a painter. I'm an imaginatarian. I'm a storyteller. I'm a mythologist. I'm a yokaiologist. And I am the creator of the epic storyverse experience of Matsu. And Matsu is an epic tale written in the likes of like the great Iliad and Homer's Odyssey and the Genji tales from Japan. It features yokai, mythological folklore creatures of ancient and of the now. And I'm telling it in what's called a multi-platform storytelling, which has become available in this digital age. I'm telling it in a TV series, web series. It'll be short films, it'll be feature films, live action, animation, and puppetry. And that's who I am.
So what are we looking at? I see there's some kind of painting of sorts. What are we looking at there?
We're looking at most people recognize these creatures as dragon, right? But I create taksu, which are Japanese yokai, and yokai in English roughly means strange spirit. And tatsu are dragon-like creatures, but their dragon English translation pretty much means demon. And tatsus are kind of the opposite. In Western mythology, a dragon is your side that's going to give in to the machine and give in to drifting and give in to kind of your demonic side. And tatsu are the complete opposite. They're water serpents. And so they represent the not giving in to that mechanical or the industrial or the world side, not adhering to the conditions of this world, a transformative and the element of flow masters. They are flow masters. They are water creatures.
Yeah, so basically what I'm hearing it's some kind of a dragon. Does this dragon have a name or a specific role in Matsuverse?
Yes, tatsus are very, very prevalent creature in the Matsuverse. And like I said, they represent the flow of your life, being exactly who you be, who you originally came to be.
Is this a specific character or something general?
Yes, this character right here, his name is Ryo, and he plays a very significant part in because a lot of Matsu is all about transforming yokai and also transforming the whole metaphysical metaphor of ourselves. Because if you look up yokai on Wikipedia and on the internet, you'll find that there are demons and ghosts and ghouls. And in the Matsu world, it's here to remind you that they are also light beings and guides and guardians. And Ryo plays a very significant role in the story of Matsu because he transforms between the kind of physical world and the dream metaphysical imaginary world. In the real world, he's a Kita dog, and he's actually the pet of the boy character that goes on the journey in Matsu. And then he transforms into the Tatsu. And Tatsus are water creatures, but they can leap and fly with their sails. In my book, which right here is Symphony,
Yeah.
which starts to tell the whole story of Matsu. Ryo is featured right here. You can say at this one part where the boy basically he gets submitted to the hospital, and they say he's going to die, and they don't know what the disease is. And he's a painter, a poet, and so he starts to write and paint these imaginary worlds. And then when he gets released, very spontaneously, he heads home, and there's Ryo right there. And his pets are a turtle and a dog. But when he arrives home, he starts to figure out his first yokai power, which he can talk to animals. And then all of a sudden, his turtle transforms into a kappa yokai. His dog transforms into a tatsu yokai, which is Ryo right here. And wait, all that action in the hospital is real? Who's talking to me? The boy's name is Shigin, and he says Shigin, and so this is Taiko the Kappa, And he says, Shigen, do you have a hole in your head? And then Ryo's over here going, the imagination creates some cool adventures. So get ready to roll, Shigen.
I love that. You mentioned that this boy imagined all of them into being, and I imagine you imagine this dragon that we're looking at the screen into being. And
Tatsu. This is Matsuu.
yeah, that's
Very, very key.
okay. So what I was trying to understand is you obviously created him, and I'm curious how much of the time that you created you actually were in state of flow, and how much time, just to understand, it took for you to create the image that we see, and also is this image complete? Is it in a process? Try to understand like from beginning to what we see right now, the process.
Right now, this is just in sketch. And I start to lay down some of the colors. I love doing just really sporadic inflow backgrounds, so you can see the backgrounds really, a lot of splash paint, and then I just take a rough marker and I just sketch. And your question about flow, everything is flow. The whole epic story experience of Matsu. That's why I say it's written in the grand tradition of epic poems. I don't sit down and novel, write stories and think of all these stories. I write poems. I brought some poems today if we have some time to read some poems. So I write poems, and poems come to me in complete flow. 99.9% of the time when I write a poem, I have no idea what it's about. And Matsu has been in the form of over 20 years of just sitting down every day. My blood is poet, and I've been studying and being a professional poet and made my living off poetry for, over 30, 40 years. Basically, poetry is all in the flow because it's all based on inspiration and just I'll get a notion and a feeling and something I want to express, and then I start to compose it. I also you there's very few of us on the planet now, but I also work in the original form of poetry, which written poetry is definitely a form of poetry, but the original poetry was just spoken. And when I write, mainly I write because I don't have an audience for someone to listen to. The page listens to me. It's in complete flow to answer your question.
One thing I really want to try here for sure. I want to challenge you to get into that flow, to have that spoken poetry made up on a spot in a flow. So that's one thing I would like to achieve today in this podcast. Another thing I want to continue before we do that, I want to understand like how much actual work has been gone already into creating this picture we're seeing right here because I'm not an artist. I don't know how to paint and I have no clue how much actual effort it takes to create something like this. Like for me, what I'm seeing right now, it's pretty cool already. Like I could not create something like that personally without training or some kind of guidance. And I have no clue how much time it takes to get here. However, once you started going through the symphony book that you showed us, I saw the quality in there is radically a lot better than what we see here. I'm just kind of mind blown trying to gauge how much actual effort, time, and like concentration goes into like even creating a page of the book and even this thing, like how much time already have spent here. Try to get a guide into the process and understanding like what am I looking at here.
Basically, to answer your question, I think that's where it really goes to your concept of even your podcast we're on. It's Flow Master. The time is doesn't really even exist. The best question I always answer because when I go sell my works in public, people come up and they're like, "How much time did that take?" And I see a fully finished piece. I say probably a matter of minutes, seconds, and 40 years of being who I be, the being I've come to be. And so it's all done in flow. It's so much fun. I enjoy it. I was meant to do it. I'm really clear all about that. A lot of it is just based all on a spark of inspiration. Just ooh, I love to meditate. A lot of times in meditation, it'll just come to me, and I'll be ooh, and I'll think of this and that, and everything I do is also based in poetry. And so like like we live in basically three real worlds. A lot of the second and third world we've suppressed a lot. And I think a majority of the world is kind of asleep to that part, which is the second, there's the physical world where the painting's actually here and we're actually painting on it. But then there's the preform world of the imagination, right? And the dreamlike state, the trance state. And that's where I live as an artist. And I see it in words and poetry. And for instance, underneath this one is another one I'm working on, right? And this is a whole concept of a creature, a yokai creature that is embedded in the Matsuu verse. And it basically is a mechanical being, like a Transformers. Are you familiar with the Transformers?
Yeah.
It's like the Transformers, but instead of the Transformers turned into cars and trucks, right? Well, this guy, he brings back the music. And so if you see, he's all mechanical with music. And so there's a lot of poetry in this, right? Because I mean, look, he has like guitar feet and saxophones and keyboards and all sorts of electronic equalizers. And then my grandma, Japanese, my grandma played the koto instrument. So there's the koto up there. And then, of course, there's the pipes, right? And then a lot of modern technology, turntables and CDs and all kinds of stuff. And in the epic storyverse experience, and this all came to me in flow, just like imagining the story. And there's this place called 96542 in the Matsu storyverse, and the creatures all go there, and it's kind of in a different dimension of Earth, but they recreate a world. And so one thing they forgot was the music. This creature's name is Kabuki, and he showed up. He got blasted away in the spirit world, and then he put himself back together with instruments. And so, see, I imagine that whole part of it, right? Going back to your question, like how long does it take to do a lot of this? It's first in that imaginary world, right? In that dreamlike state. And so there's a lot of flow there because I just go to the center myself. I shut down the outside world and let it just come out of nowhere, basically. And it's all inspiring. And then the third world we seem to ignore a lot, right? Is the world of vibration. And that's the world of also mythos, the world of mythic storytelling. And in that world, we have a lot of vibration, and that's where our intuition kicks in, and that's where our emotions kick in, right? And then the third world, I believe, binds the imaginative world and the physical world. Then my emotions come out as an artist, and that's in a lot of flow. Because a lot in my life, I work a lot on, releasing a lot of, illusory emotion, things that don't serve the I am in me. And so, yeah, I use those emotions to have fun and express joy and express color and creativity. And a lot of it, I beginning to notice that when I'm in that flow and I do my arts from poetry, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, so I play music, I do poetry, I paint, I draw, I do storytelling, and I love theater. I love voice acting and puppetry. When I express myself, I believe I do what the great Joseph Campbell said an artist's job is to do is to create transcendence, to remind people that you have your bills to pay, you have food you have to eat, you have to breathe, you have to walk, but there's this other dimension. There's so much going on and so much incredible stuff. And so a lot of my art and the Matsu Storyverse is here to undulp those other senses, your intuition, your creativity, your flow, what I love to call magic, which to me is just not a woo woo word. I define magic as just making yourself available to what's out there. And that's where I love a lot of wordplay since I'm a poet, right? So I love uni verse, and uni means one and verse means poem. And then phonetically it says you and I in the verse. And then if we play with it further, we put city at the end. It's you and I in the verse in the city, university. It's not a college or physical place. It's you and I in the verse. And I define poetry at simplest level as being the freedom of language,
May I stop you
flow
for
of
a
language.
split moment? Because from definition of flow state, it's where challenge meets skill. And before our conversation, I was thinking that I don't know how easy it is to paint and talk, But when I started my handstands, I do yoga. So when I started handstands, I could barely stand. So I was struggling just to stand. And then over time, as I was trying to stand, I was barely able to breathe as I was able to stand. And then over time, I was actually able to start speaking while I was standing. And I'm curious, how is this for you? If you were to paint right now, are you still able to speak?
Oh, yes. And a lot of that's just like your yoga. But I basically did a lot of streaming. I'm a partner Twitch streamer. And so a little that is pain.
Starting paint something as you speak. I think that would be really
Sure.
cool to see for listeners and viewers to just to experience you in a flow as you paint and speak at the same time. And I feel like that's a certain level of mastery. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes, I think a lot of it is the love of being able to do something you love to do. It also comes from, the whole being present with what you're doing. And I think at the base of it, I flow because I love it so much. And then probably in the deeper realm, I was meant to do it. It's very purposeful. And so it's very intentional what I do. So right now, I'm using indie ink, and it's a water-based ink, right? And it has a lot to do with the flow. And I'm using my favorite color, even though I'm an artist, I have a favorite color, which is more of an indigo, because it physically represents, green, which is abundance, right? And then blue, which is flow and expansion.
So for what I'm seeing here is it's kind of a balance between logical, like, okay, this is my favorite color, I'm gonna use it. These are the strokes I'm gonna make, and just like there's a certain type of experience. So there's that part, but there's also this intuitive and just playing part. So could you kind of like guide us for the next 30 to 60 seconds in your decision making process to understand what's happening, why happening this, if that's not too challenging for you? Or distracting, just to understand.
No, not at all. I mean, it's just basically right now it's in the flow. A lot of what you're referring to more the logical and the what in a lot of art, which is called form, right? I kind of thought that out already with the sketch. Yeah. Right. So I know right here what I'm doing right now is doing what's called the underpainting, right? And so I know that he has a big old mustache, right? And so I'm the hairs. And then it gets really kind of like you're saying, magical, but also metaphoric. Like, you know, um, I'm painting with a brush that has, animal hairs in it. Right. And then a lot of it's very intuitive, if you let it do what it wants to do. And then most people don't see drawing as painting. It's a lot to me like sculpture.
I see you going all over the place. You do left to right till it's a complete chaos. You know where to track.
You can't make a mistake, basically. There's ways to fix all kinds of stuff. And especially, I love working in what's called multi-mediums, And so you'll see me right now, this ink is very opaque, which means, not transparent, but I can add water to it and it'll start to get transparent. See, it starts to get transparent. And then I also love playing with texture right here. Going back to your question, some of the logic will come in is because I'm saving some highlights, right? Do what's called circling right here and make the top of the nose have a highlight. See, starting to get dimension, right? And then part of the logic too is I'm very versed in color theory. And so I just won't put down that's supposed to be red. So then I come over here and I use a red, right? I'm versed in color theories. What makes color in the world is color theory. Actually, if I took some orange and started laying it like an orange on my brush, if I start laying it on top here, I'm going to get way more dimension. And if I get my darks from the orange and the red together, it'll start doing its dimension, right? And then I was saying that I can use some opaque paint, some acrylic paint, so I can bring some whites in. And then this is a technique in the kind of logical sense of wet on wet, but you can see I'm getting a lighter color there. So now I'm starting to create dimension.
I really love how you said that you cannot make mistake. And that's probably like a really freeing mindset. Like when you have so much technique, so much ways to play, it's so easy to play. And also
And here's another example. of using multi-mediums. And so I'm using a thick black pen, see, so I can punch in the, so now you see the mouth starting to have dimension.
So going back to my initial question, I love how you started answering the dimensionality of how much time it takes to create a painting. And you started explaining, well, it's 40 years of experience, it's the dreaming state, it's the channeling and connecting with the, as you said, third world. So it's like, it's a pre-process. Just even before you haven't even picked up a pen or anything, there's already like a investment already happening. And also like when you get into the flow, as we know, it's time dilates and it's like you don't even count time. So there you can, unless you intentionally measure it, you wouldn't actually know how much time flew. I understand all that. And yet I still would like to kind of have a gauge. I would totally understand if you don't have any, but if you do have gauge, how much time you have already invested in like physical painting of this picture just to understand.
Well, the sketch is very much in flow, and so if I measure the sketch, I do this probably, I did this sketch in probably under a couple minutes.
Okay.
I just take black pen and I just flow because it's all, so then other physical time is me dreaming, in my meditation or walking through the day and just going, "Whoa, okay."
Yeah, that's hard to measure. I can imagine you have, and you also mentioned one thing is that it's not only this dragon that comes through, it's the whole character. Satsu. This is not only that the Tatsu that's coming through, it's actual characters, some scenes, some stories. So there's already like this bunch of things coming through, and it's not only the painting, it's as I said, the whole story verse is coming through.
Yes. Very, very, yep. You're answering a lot of your questions perfectly. Tom's fair in the flow.
If you had to guesstimate, for you to feel that this painting is finished, how much time do you think it would take for you?
If I, just totally focused on it, a painting like this, probably under an hour, but that's years of doing it.
Obviously, we're chatting.
And a lot of it also, people aren't aware of it, is a lot of confidence. So it's a lot of being in the flow and knowing, having that knowing.
I really want to kind of accentuate what you just said, that part of your ability to create a painting in what I believe is a quite short amount of time, 1 hour, is that confidence. I feel like that's really important aspect that you mentioned.
And to go back to what our focus on the show is, that confidence is a part of the challenge meet the skill. The skill is just not technically painting. The skill is also being able to get in that flow and trust.
As you mentioned, challenge versus skill, it reminded me the Flow book by Mikhaili Csikszentmihalyi, and it got me curious as well. Like, did you study flow and you find flow through study, or flow found you and afterwards you kind of confirmed it in later study? So, what was your journey in terms of flow?
Flow found me because I've been doing art since a very early age, and it brought more definition and logic to the meaning of my life, and that I've always been doing everything in flow. But definitely found me because I discovered that book through how we met, through Joseph Rodriguez and the internet.
So you mentioned that you do everything through flow. Help me understand, what do you mean by that? Is it literally flow? Like, it is it? Help me understand, what does it actually practically mean?
Literally in flow and accentuating who I am, who I naturally be, my natural ability to take trauma or pain and turn it into my power. It's a lot like what the Matsuu Storyverse is based on, very inspired by Jim Henson and the Muppets, right? And if you look at all the Muppets, they're all pain into power. All of their things that the world would look at and say, "You're too loud or too noisy," or "Cookie Monster, you eat too many cookies." It becomes his power and his entertainment. And so I've had a lot, grew up what you would normally say very tragic and very abnormal to most people, and experienced a lot of things. In Native American sense, a shaman's real definition is the kid who saw death before life. I saw a lot of death before life, so I saw to me, which is flow, which I saw a lot of process before the actual unveiling of why it was happening.
I'm mindful of the time we have here, and we have like about 5 minutes left on this podcast. And that said, since you mentioned before in our conversation that what about flow is allowing emotions to flow, is to just let them be. And since I invited you to create a poem, I'm curious, can you create a poem, spoken poem at the same time as you paint? Is this something you have done before? And do you think it's something you can do?
Yeah, sure. I do it all the time.
You do it all the time. Okay, I would love to be part of this, like an experience in flow.
In the brilliance of an iridescent butterfly that finds its way in between a light bulb and a fever of a storm, I find myself in a flow state that dreams awake, takes its place on a flight inside a dragonfly. This takes me back to when my grandma was in ancient Japan and she sat on the back porch and dreamed off a far off land. She saw Tatsu's birthing across the Pacific Ocean, rising higher than thunder clouds and dreams of jewels sinking to the bottom. And when the paint flows like it does, each stroke it's an intention of joy and love, and the releasing of the emotion is perfect. It cures the fever, and in the iridescent dawn, where I see the smoke rising, it's always a ceremony to say we are alive, we are here, we are flowing like angels dancing upon a midnight flame.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be and experience this. And I know we have like just 2 minutes left. And before the time runs out, I want to mention everyone who's watching and listening. If you want to see what happens with the dragon and want to see the journey, please join us in our school community, Flow Masters, where you can also meet Tazuo. And with that said, there's one more question I want to ask. I noticed just before you started making a poem, there was this pause just before. And I'm wondering what happened in that pause.
Just open the doorway into myself, went within, instead of just existing out here. And, kind of gratitude to the ancient spirit because, grandma came up or Bachan came up. And I just, it's almost like loading your bow and arrow, putting the arrow in it and blessing how it's going to sail.
I really love your answer because it reminds me of I had another interview with another graphical artist and I asked him how he defines flow. And he said appreciation of the detail. And you said as well, what happened? You opened the doorway to sell and felt gratitude towards ancient spirit. So within the last 60 seconds that we have, I want to give you the final word. If you have any, you want to give to our listeners and watchers.
I just want to give a lot of gratitude to you, Toms, and opening this space to explore what flow mastering is. I really enjoyed being here. I think the gateway to really opening the flow is just pure gratitude. Thank you.
So thank you so much and have it magical.